prosecution, they claim they don't have these FBI records in creating that family tree. And so when we talk about the prosecution handing over materials to the defense, if it's not something they have or they're using in their case, I thought that was interesting. Now, you mentioned that, I think you mentioned that the judge cited a recent case where they said that any records that are held by any law enforcement agency that was involved in the prosecution of a defendant, that's part of the discovery in the case, even if the prosecution doesn't have it. FBI was working with local and state law enforcement here. So I think that's a part of it that complicates it too, right? I mean, should the prosecution have to turn over something that they technically don't have?
So there are two issues here. One is, I don't know the state law and how broad that is on discovery obligations. Under the United States Constitution and what we call the Brady principle, and that means very simply that if the prosecution has anything in its possession, and that includes the police it has worked with, that might in some way make it less likely that person is guilty or indicate maybe something that would reduce the severity of the charge or go to sentencing, they have to turn it over and get it from law enforcement agencies they've worked cooperatively with. I'm not sure yet if this material is Brady material, because again, Brady material is Brady material only if it tends to help the defendant. But the judge may be applying that notion. Hey, you brought the FBI in, they cooperated with you, pick up the phone and call them. Yeah. Now, I think one of the problems is the FBI may not have preserved all their notes, but that's separate from, okay, well, send us what you have. Look, and again, I'm sorry, the only person who's going to look at it literally is the judge. In that in-camera, it's going to be the judge alone or the judge with their court clerks or researchers. The prosecutor and the defense, as I understand it, won't be in there. And then the judge is going to say, I find nothing, or I find something, or my goodness, you have to get it all.
Yeah, and that could take a little bit of time to figure out what to turn over and how it's going to be used. So that was issue number 3. This is issue number 4. You talked about it a little bit already. There's so much evidence. In a filing back in May, the prosecution told the defense it was handing over 10,000 pages of reports and written materials, more than 10,000 photographs, 9,200 tips, 51 terabytes of video, audio, and digital materials. That seems like a lot to go over. First of all, Jules, are you surprised there is so much here? And how on earth is the defense going to review all of this?
So I'm not surprised, because this was an incredibly thorough and I think multi-agency investigation. As to how the defense is supposed to go through it, I don't know. This is obviously akin to the argument Donald Trump's lawyers are making, right? You want us to go to trial in a case with 3 million pages of documents, whatever one thinks pro or con about Donald Trump. There should be enough opportunity for anyone's lawyers to go through whatever there is to go through.
At today's hearing, he has visited his client 4 times since his arrest. Mr. Yu, you have a busy day ahead of you. First of all, just quickly, what do you expect to happen today at the hearing?
I expect Bryan to be brought into courtroom 1, and he's likely to sign the extradition paperwork.
And you've visited with him several times. You've made a point to say you have not talked to him or tried to talk to him about the substance of the charges against him. What has his demeanor been like? What has his mood? What have you observed from those multiple interactions in the last few days?
He's being very calm. He's very aware. He understands the proceedings. I did discuss with him what to expect in the upcoming days on his transport, as well as what to expect when he actually returns to Idaho and is likely in front of a magistrate or a judge there.
I recognize you're being careful because you're handling this procedural matter. You're not the person who will be defending him at trial, presumably. But has he reacted to the charges at all? One can imagine being accused of something like this and saying, wait, where did this come from? Why are they coming after me? Have you seen any kind of that behavior from him?
It is a little out of character. He said, I mean, this is not him. He believes he's going to be exonerated. That's what he believes. Those were his words. So he's really been very easy to talk to, actually. And he's in a calm demeanor, like I stated.
What about his family? The mother, father, the sister, they put out a statement. What do they say about the charges against him and what they make of this in terms of the person that they know?
They don't believe it to be Bryan. They can't believe this. They're obviously shocked. This is certainly completely out of character, the allegations, and really they're just trying to be supportive with the understanding these four families have suffered loss, so that they're sympathetic towards that, and that's why it should remain really private. And they don't want to try this case in the court of public opinion, and without knowing the facts and evidence, as of right now, they don't really want to comment on things.
His father drove him from Washington State at the holidays back to Pennsylvania. I understand that was a plan that had been in the works for some time. They were also stopped by police a couple of times on the way, I think, for minor traffic violations. Do you believe that to be part of this larger investigation, or is that just a random coincidence?
I believe it to be a random coincidence. I don't disbelieve that Bryan and Michael Koberger would have made that story up. There's no reason. They have been fully cooperative. I know there's some reports that there's no actual evidence that they were stopped in Indiana, but Mr. Koberger, Michael, had definitely said that they were stopped twice in Indiana back to back.
All right, Jason Labar, I know it's a busy...
The man and in the context of the situation.
The man is an intelligent man, Bryan. He was easy to talk to. He was aware of the situation. Really, it was a great conversation that we had given the circumstances of everything involved.
You say that he told you he was shocked that he was arrested. How so and why?
I believe he was shocked by the moment that the police broke his door down, had guns in his face. He was unaware that that was going to happen, and he was really shocked by the arrest. He wasn't expecting it, obviously.
To be clear, you drafted a statement with and for your then client, the accused, in which he said, "I will be exonerated." Those were not your words, but do you agree with his assessment?
I agree. That's what he had said to me, that he believed that he would be exonerated, which I believe implicitly that he was innocent of the crimes.
Now that is we're both lawyers. You're just a better one.
I don't know about that.
I do. Your zealous representation responsibility is to do everything you can to advance his cause under law. That's zealous representation. You do not have to say you believe he is innocent. You can say he's not guilty of the charges, they can't make the case, I think that they're speaking out of school, I don't think they have what they think. There's a whole range of qualifying statements. But innocent is something else. Innocent is that you believe he did not do this. Do I have it accurate?
Well, I don't want to put those words in my mouth. He said he was eager to be exonerated, which I believed him to mean that he believed he was innocent. I wasn't judging the case at that point in time. I didn't have the affidavit of probable cause. I knew none of the facts, and I didn't ask Bryan about any of the facts or circumstances surrounding the case either.
Okay, that is very important, and I apologize because I have been slapping you around for making such a heady assessment so early in the case. But now that we put out the statement and you're saying, no, this is what he told you, and that was your takeaway about how he felt about his own situation. Very different. I apologize for any other inference. I'm glad we cleared it up. Now, once you saw the affidavit, what do you think now?
I said from the beginning, I read it 4 times through before I think I got most of it soaked in. I felt that it was a strong circumstantial case that's likely to possibly get stronger based upon other evidence that I would expect. But there are certainly holes. Whether or not the prosecution can close those holes is another story for another day.
what is your biggest concern?
I think the biggest concern is obviously his DNA on the sheath of the knife that was found in the room next to the Mogan body.
We have to know what kind of DNA it is because there's a suggestion that goes like this, that it wasn't him, it was somebody he knew who he was with. Without violating, or this would only help his cause, do you have any reason to believe that it could have been somebody else? That he wasn't alone? That the man who was shot in the shootout at Washington State University, the security guard, is he relevant?
I don't have any knowledge of another person being involved. Again, I never asked Bryan any of the facts and circumstances surrounding the case. I made that.
Chris Como said clearly, was there somebody else involved, like the security guard in the shootout? Does he mean Brent Kopacka? Because there wasn't any other shootout incidents in Washington Pullman and Idaho, Moscow.
We have to know what kind of DNA it is because there's a suggestion that goes like this, that it wasn't him, it was somebody he knew who he was with. Without violating, or this would only help his cause, do you have any reason to believe that it could have been somebody else? That he wasn't alone? That the man who was shot in the shootout at Washington State University, the security guard, is he relevant?
I don't have any knowledge of another person being involved. Again, I never asked Bryan any of the facts and circumstances surrounding the case. I made that clear from the moment I sat down with him that I was simply there to represent him for the extradition proceedings and that his attorney in Idaho would really be taking the case over and would want to hear his story first.
Is it unusual, even with that admonition, that people don't tell you why they're innocent and why they didn't do this and here's what's wrong with this situation, help me?
It was certainly a unique situation for me. I've never had it like this quite before, where such serious charges an individual was facing. But I really wanted to make sure that he understood that I didn't want to know about the facts and circumstances. And I did cut him off several times before he was able to tell me anything about the case.
He asked when he was arrested, we are told, has anyone else been arrested? Does that sound right to you?
That's my understanding of what's out there. When I spoke to Bryan about what he said to the police, and he did speak to police for approximately 5 to 15 minutes before invoking his Miranda rights, he couldn't recall what he had actually said to them.
So let's clear this up. Bryan Christopher Koberger can't remember saying, was anyone else arrested? His former lawyer in Pennsylvania asked him that, Jason LeBron, and he said he couldn't remember that. So I don't think we can count on that.
He asked when he was arrested, we are told, has anyone else been arrested? Does that sound right to you?
That's my understanding of what's out there. When I spoke to Bryan about what he said to the police, and he did speak to police for approximately 5 to 15 minutes before invoking his Miranda rights, he couldn't recall what he had actually said to them.
So Bryan Christopher Koberger revoked his Miranda rights. This is interesting.
For approximately 5 to 15 minutes before invoking his Miranda rights, he couldn't recall what he had actually said to them.
Did his disposition, his demeanor to you, play as someone who was or was not connected to what happened?
I don't really want to judge that. I treat my clients with respect and build a rapport with them, even for the short period of time that I was speaking with Bryan. I wanted his trust for that short period of time so he understood what I was trying to do for him I thought was in his best interest. I still believe what I'm doing for him even now is in his best interest. So I really wanted to build that rapport, and I don't question things like that. especially
Counselor,
without
I
seeing the
appreciate it.
affidavit of probable cause.
Hey, thank you for watching.
Jason LeBron is a good criminal defense attorney. That's how lawyers are supposed to be, loyal to their customers and their clients. So anyway, we do not have proof that Bryan Christopher Koberger said those words. And it's interesting to note that he is actually a person that shows empathy. Bryan and his family, that's what the lawyer said, that they have respect for the families of the 4 victims. We can take it as we want to, but that's what Jason noticed from him, which is a good sign. And when Bryan Christopher Koberger was a security guard, I believe 2-3 years ago, in a mall, a woman had an asthma attack and he saved her till the 911 emergency got there. So that shows that he does have empathy. He's not this ruthless killer that people are making us believe. And he's not guilty until proven guilty. He's innocent until proven guilty. I'm sure there'll be many juries that will have reasonable doubts here, especially with the property being demolished. I don't understand what is the hurry. And these interviews just show the human side of Bryan Christopher Koberger. It's not all bad. He doesn't have a criminal history. There's no proof yet of us seeing him going inside the house and committing these awful crimes, besides his phone pinging there and touch DNA. This was such a horrific crime, and crimes, quadruple murders, that there was blood on the walls. So how come there wasn't more liquid evidence on Bryan Christopher Koberger, in his car, in his office, in his house, and wherever he's been to? His house has been checked. He and his family were shocked that he was arrested. He could be pretending, or he could have literally not expected this, or maybe he expected to be framed. We don't know. But I think it's so unsensitive and so unprofessional and unmindful of them to have demolished the house. Where are the 3 unidentified male DNAs? There were too many things happening that night. A lot of things that were clear, massive, huge red flags. From the grub truck to the band field to every little thing that has been happening. Maybe that's exactly what the media wanted to feed us with. That Bryan Christopher Koberger is the boogeyman. They don't have proper evidence, and now they're demolishing the rest of the evidence they have. This doesn't make sense at all. They always said it was a targeted, isolated incident. They said the house was the target. Then they said no, the victims are the targets. The mayor said it was a crime of passion. I believe this has something seriously to do with Kaylee. The reason I say that is Kaylee got the most injuries. Kaylee wasn't supposed to be back that weekend. Word around town is that Dylan called her and asked her to come back. What happened in that sorority party that Kaylee was invited to the night before? Was there a party? Or was that only speculations that night when the quadruple murders happened? Dylan heard somebody clearly running upstairs, rummaging. Was there a party going on? Because she said, keep it down. I'm trying to sleep. Why did the police say that they were debunking the theory of people speculating that the students were gagged up? It could have been possible. Rumors usually come from the sources of where things have happened. Not every rumor is a rumor. A lot of the speculations are actually true. What about the 4chan posts? They clearly had 3 targets, motives. There was a fight at the Sigma Chi fraternity that night. How come Hunter was the first person on the scene? Why did it take 8 hours for the police to be called? Where's Dylan and Bethany's empathy? They were texting each other at the time of the murders. This doesn't make sense. Was there a cleanup? Were they staging this up? Is Bryan being framed? Or is Bryan actually someone with serious mental health issues? Did all the heroin addiction damage Mr. Bryan Christopher Koberger's brain cells? Allegedly. Or is he just being set up and he has nothing to do with this? Do the surviving roommates know Bryan? Was Dylan really a witness, or did the police force her to be a witness? In the beginning, let's not forget, the police did not believe that the surviving roommates were a witness. They corrected the Fox News reporter by saying, no, we never said they were a witness. We said they were just there. And that was Chief Fry himself. What was really happening that night in the house? Showalter knows Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen from Idaho, Boise. Did they leave the door open for him so that he could come in? We saw he was upset when the girls left him. He had cleared motives. He was kicked out of the fraternity for disturbing behaviors. He creeps people out more than Bryan Christopher Koberger, allegedly. Nobody was targeting Hoodie Guy. Hoodie Guy fits a profile. He knows how to use K-bar knives. Let's not forget that. He's a hunter. He's a wrestler. He's a professional wrestler. And we forget that Jack D is a professional tennis player. He has a strong arm. Why was David Lodge and his friends waiting for Maddie and Kaylee to enter the grub truck? They turned towards they turned their backs towards them so that the girls couldn't see it was them. So we have Jack Showalter, we have David Lodge, we have his friends, we have number 9 putting things up in people's mouths, we have number 8, we have the Sigma Chi fraternity boys, we have many other fraternities there. Maddie's jacket was found behind the bushes, and I pointed that out months and months ago. I can see many people on YouTube are using it without even stating where they got the source from. Why was Maddie's jacket there? Bryan Christopher Koberger is innocent until proven guilty. He's entitled to a fair trial. I don't understand why there's no trial date set up yet. They said somewhere in summer 2024. These families need closure. These victims need justice. So I hope they do it soon. They should do it soon because there's no point. The house is demolished. They're getting rid of the crime scenes. They're getting rid of the DNA evidence. May the 4 victims rest in peace. Happy New Year. Justice of the